I'll call the Mooresville Board of Adjustment meeting to order. And I'll start with reading the chairman's statement. Welcome to this meeting of the County Mooresville Board of Adjustment. The board hears and decides requests for variances, appeals from decisions of administrative officials, and may hear appeals arising out of any other ordinance that regulated land use or development. When hearing variances, the board acts in a quasi-judicial capacity. This means the board will receive evidence, make findings of fact, and conclusions based upon what it determines to be credible evidence. Every quasi-judicial decision shall be based upon competent evidence in the record and shall be reduced to writing. Every quasi-judicial decision is appealable to Superior Court. The hearing and deliberation of quasi-judicial matters is open to the general public, with the focus being on gathering relevant evidence and protecting the rights of the specific parties before the board. The parties shall be given the opportunity to offer evidence, cross-examine adverse witnesses, inspect documents, and offer evidence in explanation and rebuttal. All testimony shall be sworn and provided under oath or affirmation. Evidence may be presented by one or more witnesses or documents, and the board may ask questions throughout the proceedings. The board has not established a strict time limit for presentation of evidence or comments, but retains the right to limit irrelevant or repetitive testimony and limit argument exclusively to the issues presented. The chair shall rule on procedural matters or issues. An electronic recording is being made of these proceedings, therefore please make certain that only one person speaks at a time and that you speak clearly into the microphone when addressing the board. You must identify yourself and your address. The board will receive a brief summary regarding the application from the staff. The applicant or person, entity following the application will then proceed with the presentation of evidence. At the conclusion of the case presented by the applicant, evidence may be presented by objectors or other interested parties. It is critical that each applicant for a variance address the criteria that the board is required to apply in determining whether or not unnecessary hardships would result from carrying out the strict letter of the zoning ordinance. The board shall vary any of the provisions of the ordinance upon a showing by the applicant of all of the following. Unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. It shall not be necessary to demonstrate that, in the absence of the variance, no reasonable use can be made of the property. The hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. The hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. A concurring vote of 4/5 of the board is necessary to grant a variance. In denying a variance, the board shall make findings that one or more of the requirements do not exist. Every quasi-judicial decision of the board is subject to review by Superior Court. A petition for review shall be filed with the clerk of the Superior Court no later than 30 days after the decision of the board is effective or after a written copy has been provided, whichever occurs last. Now I ask that you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if I may, Mr. Robertson, might I ask you to give a prayer, please, for us?
Father, we thank you for another opportunity to sit and listen to the wants and needs of our community. We thank you for each member that serves, and for the staff, and for the LPs. Our country's fallen on some hard times, and you have the fix. And we just pray that you would work out the details and make sure that our elected officials are listening. We ask all these things in Christ's name.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. postponement for withdrawal request.
No, sir.
Then we have approval of the minutes. Has everybody got a chance to review those? And if so, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Abraham. Thank you, Ms. Campbell. All in favor, if you don't mind, would you raise your hands to say aye? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Do we have any old business?
No, sir.
New business?
No, sir.
Then we'll move to administrative items, which are, we have to set up the election of the chairman and vice chairman. And if there were no other staff comments before that, I'm sorry.
No, sir.
So we'll need to have nominations for the election of chairman and vice chairman, and then we'll need to appoint the board for the next session. Do we have any nominations for chairman and vice chairman of the board?
I nominate you as chairman and you as vice chairman.
Are there any other nominations? If not, do we have a second? Nomination by Mr. Brady, second by Mr. Martin. All in favor, if you would raise your hand, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries.
You vote on both, aren't you?
So we have voted to put in Steve McLaughlin as chairman and Rosalind Carter Campbell as vice chair. With that, we now appoint the board, if I'm correct, Mr. Culberson? Yes. And the recommendation for the 2021 year would be myself, Jeremy Katz, Rosalind Campbell, Alan Johnson, and John Robertson. As an outside member or ETJ participant, alternates would be Mr. Brady, Mr. Abraham, Mr. Hodgson, and Danny Martin. I'll make a motion that we approve the board nominees. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, if you would raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Then the motion carries with the new board adjustment participants. With that, are there any other items or comments from staff?
No, sir.
We covered everything appropriately?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, then I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and we'll close the board adjustment. With that, we'll move to the planning board. I'll read the chairman's statement. Welcome, my name is Steve McLaughlin. I would like to welcome you to the Mooresville Planning Board meeting. Members of the board are appointed by and serve at the pleasure of the town board and review all items related to zoning and land use for the town of Mooresville. The procedure used in all public meetings for this board when reviewing agenda items are as follows. Staff presents background information on the agenda item with their recommendation. The board may then call the applicant or developer forward to provide information for deliberation. Any board member may ask questions at any time. All board members are required to vote unless they have a conflict of interest. Any and all public comments for this meeting will be heard during the public comments period and shall be directed towards a specific item on the agenda under discussion. If you are going to speak during public comments, at the appointed time, come to the speaker's stand, give your name and address for the record. Please be aware of the following rules when speaking. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. I, as chair, will inform the speaker when their time is up. Individuals are allowed to speak once per public comment period. Individuals may not bank or donate their time to other speakers. Comments are to be directed toward the full board and not individual members. There will be no deliberations between individual speakers and any board member. As chairperson, I'm responsible for enforcing these local rules as part of my duties. This meeting is being recorded. At this time, I ask that you please turn off your cell phones or put them in silent mode. Thank you. Do we have any postponement or withdrawal requests?
No, sir.
So now we have consideration for the approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review? And if so, do I have a motion to accept?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. With that, all in favor, aye. Any opposed? Thank you. With that, any old business, Ms. Blake?
No, sir. However, Mr. Chairman, there has been a request for me to remind the members of the board to please turn on your microphone and please speak into them.
Thanks very much. New business, ZC 2020-19, 459 Raleigh School Road. Ms. Blake?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is conventional zoning case 2020-19 for a property located at 459 Raleigh School Road. The applicant is Dr. Harsh Noble. The owner is Roderick and Patrick Kistler. This is a conventional rezoning to go from single-family residential 2 to corridor mixed use. And you can see on the screen where the property is located within the town. The site is 6.16 acres located along Raleigh School Road. The current use is a single-family residence. The site does fall within the Raleigh School Road Overlay District, and it is located in the town's ETJ. Its current zoning is single-family residential 2, again, Raleigh School Road Overlay District. Some of the by right uses allowed in R2 are single-family residences, duplexes, manufactured homes, schools, government facilities, religious facilities, civic facilities, parks, farms, and stables. So more of the less dense uses, and the density is 2 units per acre. The future land use designation does call this to be mixed-use corridor, which calls for a mix of retail, office, commercial, and multifamily development. The primary uses of this designation include mixed use, commercial retail, office, medical office, and multifamily. The desired residential density is 4 to 16 units an acre. Here you can see the pages from the Mooresville Plan calling out what the mixed-use corridor is supposed to look like. It mentions 1 to 3 stories, or 2 to 4 stories for buildings, the setbacks, things of that nature. You can take a closer look at that if you would like. The next steps that the applicant will have to take is that we'll have to go before the town board for action on August 3rd. Should it get approved, they will have to submit a concept plan for staff, get it approved. Because it is in the ETJ, it will have to be annexed if they would like to have town utilities, so utility extension request would have to come in and be approved as well. And then at that point, they'll have to get all applicable approvals from building standards, Iredell County, land disturbance permits, things of that nature. Staff does recommend approval of this request because we feel like mixed-use corridor and CMX align. We also think it is compatible with the surrounding area because it is proximate to commercial uses already located on Raleigh School Road. At this time, I'll answer any questions you may have for me.
Thank you, Ms. Blake. Are there any questions from the board? If not, then do we have an applicant to speak?
I believe.
you would please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, this is Dr. Harsh Govind. My address is 146 Flora Vista Drive here in Mooresville, North Carolina.
Thank you.
I thank the board for giving me the opportunity to talk about what I plan to or intend to do with this property with changing the use from the residential to commercial mixed use. I work for Fremont Healthcare, one of the healthcare organizations there local in the county. We'll be needing some more space for a medical office building, and that's what I meant to. I don't have a detailed presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Goal is to have a medical office building in this area so we can serve the people of Mooresville and have some more capacity to be able to do that. Where I am presently, it's I've just kind of outgrown the space and we're looking for some good space in and around Mooresville.
Are there any questions from the board for the applicant? Sounds like none, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
With that, is there anyone from the audience to speak to this matter? No one from the audience to speak? With that, then, I would ask if there are any further questions or any discussion from the board. And if not, then do I have a motion?
I'll move we approve the request to change from R2 to CMX for its regional and consistent with the town's.
I move we approve the request from R2 to CMS for its reasonableness and consistent with the town's comprehensive land use plan, and is within the commercial corridor and similar to the surrounding area.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Brady. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we need to reread the statement of reasonable compliance? And do I have a motion to accept the statement of reasonableness and compliance as read?
So moved.
And second, all in favor? Any opposed? Then motion carries. We have our next item, which is, and by the way, that will be heard on the town board if someone missed that on August 3rd. Our next item B is ZC 2020-20, Haney Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is conventional zoning case 2020-20, located on Haney Drive. The applicant and the owner is William Downing. This is a conventional rezoning request to go from general industrial and single-family residential to entirely general industrial. The property is split zoned. It's about 85% general industrial and 15% R2. So the applicant is requesting to unify the zoning calls to GI. As you can see on the map before you, it tells you where it's located within the town. The site is 12.75 acres located on Haney Drive. Its current use is vacant. There is access to it along Haney Drive, and it is also in the ETJ. So like I stated before, it is split zoned, so it's about 85% general industrial. Some of the uses by right in general industrial are light and heavy manufacturing, indoor and outdoor self-storage, warehousing, and then other retail options like recreation, breweries, research and development, and type 1 and type 2 retail. The upper 15% is single family residential 2. Some of the uses by right are single-family residences, duplexes, manufactured homes, and institutions such as schools, government, religious, civic, parks, farms, and stables. Again, those less dense uses with a density of 2 units per acre. The future land use designation does call for this to be neighborhood residential, which calls for interconnected neighborhoods and higher intensity uses set apart from the lower intensity uses. Some of the primary uses that were called out in the Mooresville Plan are single-family residences, townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, and small-scale, low-rise apartments. The desired residential density is 3 to 6 units per acre. Again, you can see straight from the Mooresville Plan, calling out for a desired 1 to 2 stories. It calls out the secondary uses, things of that nature. Please feel free to take a closer look at that when it is in your packet. The next steps are the same as the last case. It will have to go before a town board for action on August 3rd. If it is approved, then the applicant will have to come to staff for an approved concept plan. If they would like town utilities, they'll have to go through a utility extension request, annexation request, and then at that time go for building permits, land disturbance permits, things of that nature. So the staff does recommend approval of this request because it is compatible with the surrounding areas. It is adjacent to industrial uses. If you look at the zoning map that's in your packet, it is adjacent to GI on multiple sides. And staff will be reassessing the future character and land use map for this area in the future, because we feel like that it is worth an assessment there, so we do recommend approval. At this time, I'll take any questions you may have for me.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board for Ms. Blake? Am I to understand, Ms. Blake, then we would have to make an amendment to the land use plan subsequent to this if it were approved?
Yes and no. It will be, if this is approved, it will mean that there is an amendment to future character and land use plan, or land use map, excuse me. However, staff will be taking a greater, broader look at the future character and land use map, and we'll be bringing that back to you. So this request will not this request, but that will come back, and you can see it will have kind of a greater change. So yes, but it won't be immediate.
Okay,
If that
so
makes
this
sense.
triggers that more in-depth look over.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thanks for elaborating on that, thank you. Are there any additional questions from the board, Ms. Black, or staff?
So what's the reason, I understand saying, well, we can combine it so it makes it all one lot. But I would think staff would say, considering that there's R3 on one side, R2 on the other side, and the land use plan is for residential, would not be in favor of it, other than unless it's going from GI to R2, which would make sense to me, because that's what the land use plan calls for, and that's what's on each side. But we would see, I know the county's a lot of complaints before about the concrete plant behind the residential area, so my understanding, if it goes to GI, then, I mean, they can do it right now, but part of the property's not GI, so they go and expand the concrete plant with no problem. You just have more industrial impacts in the neighborhood area, correct?
Yes and no. There is residential around there. I know I'm really specific today, I don't know.
Yes.
There is residential surrounding it, of course, but the Mooresville Plan does actually state within the text that the future character and land use map should denote industrial uses, designations, where existing industrial uses are, which is why we're gonna be going back and reassessing and making sure that everything is kind of matching up. We also feel like that area isn't necessarily residential. Where the concrete plant is, probably will never be residential. I mean, that area is kind of industrial in nature, which is why we are recommending approval.
Thank you much. If there are no further questions from the board or staff, then I would ask if there's applicant presentation for this piece.
Yes, there's a representative for the applicant here today.
If you please come forward, state your name and address.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Donald Lundy. I'm with Piedmont Design Associates, and I'm here representing Mr. Down, who couldn't be here tonight. Work address is 125 East Plaza Drive, Mooresville.
Thank you. Did you have a presentation or just have more questions?
I just would try to answer questions. And to speak to Alan's point, you know, this is still one parcel of Allen. It's just had a split zoning there. And for some reason, it appeared like the zoning line kind of followed a power line that went through the property instead of the property line. So Mr. Downing was just trying to get a uniform zoning over his entire portion.
Are there any further questions from the board or any questions for Mr. Mundy? Thank you, Mr. Mundy.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience to speak on the matter? Okay, if there's no one in the audience, oh, I'm sorry. You please state your name and address.
My name is Joan Riddle. I live at 200 Kilmer Lane at Allison Park. My property joins this property. And I just wanted to clarify one comment that I heard a few minutes ago about this being general industrial and most of it being general industrial. I wanted to point out that the residential was put in there at Allison Park several years ago, years before the concrete plant came. It was not our desire to have the concrete plant there, and it happened. The fact that we're gonna have Reinhardt Village nearby and the schools being built, I like the idea of keeping it or changing it to GI residential. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you very much.
The entire property, in other words.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public to speak on the matter? If not, then I'll close the public hearing. And I'll ask if there's any discussion from the board. If there's no further discussion from the board, do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we recommend approval as presented, with the statement reasonable.
We can have the vote and then we can visit the statement after the vote on the secondary vote. So we have a motion from Mr. Brady for approval,
I'll second that motion.
second from Mr. Robertson. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand as well. Aye. Opposed? We have one opposed. Motion would carry, and that would go before the board on August 3rd. Now do I have a motion for the statement of reasonableness and compliance?
I make that motion. Make that motion.
Would you mind reading that?
Statement of reasonable and compliance. Which one?
I think it's the second. Do both? Second sheet, both first and second paragraph, Mr. Brady.
First paragraph, the first one, the zoning amendment is approved and is consistent with the town's comprehensive land use plan and is reasonable and in the public interest because the property is designated as mixed-use corridor in one, no, I wouldn't say.
You may be on the wrong sheet, Mr. Brady.
Second sheet.
Please, thank you.
Getting educated here.
Procedures have changed slightly.
Oh, okay, you got one for each one. Okay, I'm slow, but I'll get it. The zoning amendment is approved and is reasonable and is in the public interest because the property is currently in a split zoning situation and it's compatible with the surrounding property, which is zoned as general industrial GI. approval of the rezoning request will be comparable with the surrounding area and will remove the split zoning that currently exists in this area. In addition to approving this rezoning amendment, this approval is also deemed an amendment to the town's comprehensive land use plan. The change in conditions the planning board has taken into account is recommending amendment to the zoning ordinance to meet the development needs of the community are as follows. The property is in an area where much of the surrounding property is already zoned as general industrial GI and will allow consistent use in this area. By approving this zoning amendment, land use plan is amended to designate this area as general industrial GI. Everybody wake back up now.
Thanks.
That sounds like something government would do.
So we have a motion.
I'll second that motion.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries as well. Thank you very much. And that, to be recorded, Mr. Johnson was opposed on that as well for the statement. Our next new business is item C, text amendment 2020-03, electric fence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is text amendment 2020-03. This is in response to the text amendment request that came before this board in May. The planning board did ask that staff come back with another text amendment that was drawn up by them, so this is the town-initiated amendment before you. So this is a response to the applicant petition and planning board direction that came out in May. It is intended to provide security options for businesses while maintaining safety and desired character of the areas in which these electrified fences may be used. This text amendment changes 4 different sections of the zoning ordinance, section 2.3.11.3, section 9.3.62, section 9.3.2, and table 5.4.2. The changes in section 2.3.11.3 clarify that non-electrified fences do not require a zoning permit. I should note that all of the verbiage was included in your packet. You should have it in front of you. Table 5.4.2 outlines where the permitted accessory uses are. It shows that through a conditional use permit, electrified fences are allowed in highway business, general industrial, and exclusive industrial. Section 9.3.2 denotes that electrified fences are allowed through a conditional use permit. And then section 9.3.62 adds that electrified fences are allowed under the standards of section 9.3.2. Section 9.3.2 is where the meat of the text amendment is, where the regulations for an electrified fence are. So kind of quickly, I'll go give a quick summary of what it states, and hopefully you've had a chance to read it in your packet. So it does state that it would be allowed through a conditional use permit, would have to be approved by going before the board. There would have to be a zoning permit approved. With zoning permit approval, there would be a concept plan that would be required showing where the electrified fence was going to be on the property. And then there would need to get approval from the town of Mooresville Fire Marshal as well. And then they would have to go before Iredell County Building Standards to get an electrical permit as well, to make sure that all safety regulations are being followed. There would be a regulation for non-electrified fences to be between 4 and 12 inches in front of the electrified fence. There is a regulation in there that if it's within 150 feet of uses like schools, daycares, things of that nature, that the screening, the non-electrified fence will have to be screened in a way that little kids can't grab their hand through it. There's no, incidental grabbing of the electrified fence. They can be a maximum of 10 feet tall. And that's about it, really, a maximum of 10 feet tall. We did that because the maximum height in the zoning ordinance for the non-electrified fence is 8 feet tall, so that they will have the extra 2 feet of the electrification. So, with that, staff does recommend approval, because we feel like it provides security options for businesses. We believe it maintains the character of the areas in which these fences could potentially be used. The regulations are enforceable, and we do believe that there will be no detrimental impacts to citizens, communities, or characters.
Thank you, Ms. Blake. I'd like to compliment and thank, again, planning staff for taking the time to do this. It certainly is something that I think would be beneficial to the property owner that we heard in the previous presentation. So thanks very much for the follow-up and detail to move through that. Any questions from the board for staff?
I've got a question. What is the purpose of having to get something zoned that's already zoned, highway business or general industrial? Why would they have to go to request zoning?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
You got that pushed up, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, so, I'm sorry. Anyway, if why would they have to go and apply for zoning, it's already zoned general industrial or highway business? Would that not automatically make the zoning they need?
That would be the zoning that they needed, yes. They would not have to apply for different zoning unless they obviously weren't zoned highway business, general industrial, or exclusive industrial. They would, however, have to get a conditional use permit approved, and they would have to obtain a zoning permit.
Have to obtain zoning?
A zoning permit, yes. So like they wouldn't have to come before the planning board to get rezoned unless they wanted to put an electrified fence around a building that was in a zoning designation that was not allowed. So say for example, someone had a business in CMX and they wanted an electrified fence. They would have to get rezoned to one of the designations that allows it, and they would have to get a conditional use permit as well. And then once that conditional use permit is approved, they would have to come get certain permits from staff. Zoning permit, electrical permit from the county, approval from the fire marshal, things like that.
Yeah, as long as it's already zoned, that's fine. Okay.
Any further questions from the board? If not, thank you, Ms. Black. Is there anyone here to speak for the applicant? If you'll please state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Michael Pate. I'm with Amarok. We installed the electric guard dog. I live at 315 South Maple Street in Columbia, South Carolina. This is one big room. I really appreciate everyone working this. I'm kind of a substitute here. Unfortunately, the person who handles this, she's very ill right now and cannot attend, so I'm attending for her. So I'm just kind of picking up where she left off. Cindy, sorry she's not here. She's better looking than I am. I got a couple of comments here. One, just starting off, is the CUP. It's really difficult to run a conditional use permit. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, not only on my part, but the part of your staff. So if you're going to go ahead and amend your code to allow the use of electric security fences in specific zones, and we're pertinent to those zones, there's really no reason to go through a CUP. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, a simple building permit would do. We're off and running. We can go over the counter. We can do it online. But it just takes up a lot of time, not only my time, but your staff time to go through these. Everyone tells me it's 60 days. It drags on to 90 days, inevitably. Always happens. So it's just a long, drawn-out process that I would ask you to look at and try to get around if you possibly could. Electrical permits with the county. I'm gonna give you a little primer on electric security fences, the way we operate them. My competitors operate in the same way. We operate with a 12-volt battery. I don't know anywhere in the country where an electrical permit is required for a 12-volt battery. It does not make any sense. 12-volt battery is in your boat, your car, your truck, is what we operate these fences off of. I've never known anybody to require a permit to put a 12-volt battery anywhere. So, you know, it seems like a very, trying to choose the right words, so I don't offend anybody. It's a very, it looks like a device that might injure somebody. And what I do is I basically scare criminals. We have signs on these devices that say caution 7,000 volts. So I'm gonna give you a primer on how this works. We take a 12-volt battery. We go into an energizer, just like a cattle fence. If anyone here is familiar with cattle or livestock fence, we take that 12 volts, we amplify it to between 7,000 and 9,000 volts. It's a lot of voltage. It takes 1.3 to 1.4 seconds for that to happen. That energizer mechanically can no longer hold any more energy. Once it hits that 5 joule maximum energy hold, it must release it down the interior fence line back to an alarm panel. That alarm panel keeps reading that energy every 1.3 seconds. Bam, back, bam, back. It's looking for a nice clean return. A nice clean return in my world, 2,000 volts or more. If it goes below that, my alarm panel starts a countdown. It's looking for 5 consecutive negative returns before it sets the alarm off. That's about 7 seconds. So if I get 7 seconds with a negative return, I'm setting the alarm off. Bam, klaxon style alarm going off. It goes off here in Mooresville, North Carolina, we're about to install, and back to my call center back in Columbia, South Carolina. And we go through a call list. We're not directly set up with police departments. So we go through a call list. So whoever's number 1 on my call list, I'm calling them at 2:30 in the morning when the alarm goes off. Hey, guess what? There's a break on the northern perimeter, 220 feet from the northeast corner. What do you see? You also have cameras associated with these devices. So we pull up a camera, look at that particular fence line. Hey, we had a big thunderstorm, took out the oak tree on the corner, slammed down the fence, buttoned up, go back to bed, guys, we're okay. Or I got a bunch of guys in a flatbed truck, cut a hole in my fence, the robbed me blind, please call the local police department. That's called a verified alarm. Police love verified alarms for a couple of reasons. 1, they know exactly where to go. 2, they know exactly what they expect. So, hey, there are 4 guys out there, flatbed truck, northeast corner, hole over there. They can come up and know what to expect. It's a great device for the police department too. I'm going to address fire too. Fire is a fairly easy thing. We basically install a knock switch on all of our installations. And a knock switch is peculiar just to the local fire department. So that particular fire department will come up, hit that switch right at the gate, kill the fence, run in, do their duty. Whether it's putting out a fire or some other emergency rescue, they're going to be able to get in there and not have to worry about the electric fence coming up. The other thing I want to address is 150 feet. 150 feet from, whatever it is, being child care, daycare, school, park, residential area, it doesn't make much sense. We're always behind an existing perimeter fence that's been approved by the city. And that perimeter fence usually, not in all cases, is going to have, is not going to allow anyone to go ahead and put their hand through it. So the aperture that we must be behind is a maximum of 2.25 inches. That standard chain link is 2.25 inches. Anything larger than that, we're going to have to screen it by the standard. Let me go to standards real quick. So there are a couple of standards we operate under. The first is the International Electrotechnical Commission Standard 60335-2-76. Don't look it up unless you need to go to bed. There also are a couple of American standards. We just passed an ANSI standard, had it published last month. There was another ASTM standard for America published and passed back in January. So that we actually operate under standards and make sure that everything we do complies with these standards to make sure we have a safe and an equitable product out there on the marketplace that's not going to harm anybody. So those are the few things that I would bring up to you right here. Obviously, I install electric security fences, and I would like to be able to install them as quickly and easily as possible, because when people come to me, they have a problem. Most of the people that come to me have a problem because we're getting hit over and over and over again, and a criminal element will go to one place and they will pick out. They will go back and back and back and back, and we stop crime cold. And stopping crime cold is good for your economy, it's good for your city, it's good for the police department. I think that basically wraps it up. I try to be really quick here and rapid, so sometimes I get a little superfluous. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Are there any questions from the board for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, folks.
Ms. Black, are there any further comments from staff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would like to clarify some of the regulations that we have put in there, the logic behind that. So, with the electrical permit, in the verbiage, the original verbiage that was presented by the applicant in May, it did reference the IEC standards. We, as planning and zoning officials, did not feel like we could knowledgeably enforce IEC standards. So we had a conversation with building standards in Iredell County. Part of their electrical permit would make sure that the electric fence is within the IEC standards. It would ensure safety. We put in there for approval from the fire marshal because there are portions of the fire code that require things like knock boxes and things like that, which we don't feel like as planning and zoning officials, we have the authority to enforce, but they do. They're the experts. That's why we put those regulations there, to make sure that all of the necessary standards are being followed.
Thank you. Was there any additional questions from the board for Ms. Black or Worthing?
And then just why the 150 feet for the kids? Other than distance is great, but, you know, you could argue that it's excessive. Like I said, there is a front fence and then you have the next fence, so 150 feet after that kind of cuts off a lot of land for use.
Absolutely, and that was the intent behind it, to just make sure that little hands can't grab through that fence and unintentionally get shot or get hurt in any way. That was the idea behind it. The board does absolutely have the option to make amendments with this, to this text amendment as well. So just please bear that in mind, but that was the thought process behind it, just protecting the little ones.
Thank you, Ms. Black. Was there anybody from the audience to speak to this? With that being said, I'll ask if there's a motion on the board.
Mr. Chairman, if I could also clarify, going back to the representative from Amarock, the applicant originally, that the business owner that had the electrified fence, if this does get approved next month at the town board, they will have to come back for a conditional use permit.
Thank you, Ms. Black. Do I have a motion from the board for approval or denial?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval to the town board of TA 202003 electric fences as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion to approve statement of reasonableness and compliance? And if so, when you make that motion, would you please read the statement?
I'll make that motion. The text amendment is approved and is reasonable and in the public interest because the text amendment will clarify which fences require permit, allow for permitting above-ground electrified fences in non-residential district designations where they might serve as a protective measure or deterrent to illegal activity.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries, and that recommendation will go before the town board again on August 3rd.
Thank you, folks, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Our next business would be administrative items. Are there any director or staff comments?
No, sir.
Then, any board member comments, requests for future agenda items?
One thing, we actually do
I apologize, Mr. Chairman.
have one thing right quick.
There's actually one thing, and if you looked at, when you came in this evening, there was some paper turned upside down. If you remember last month when the state full highway rezoning was before you, Mr. Abraham asked if the town could, could look at, the traffic counts there. And I guess the efficiency of the town staff, they had already done what you'd asked. What you have here, there are several pages here that show traffic counts, eastbound and westbound on both Goodwin Circle and Whitman Circle. But to just break this down into a synopsis, if you look on the front page, you see Goodwin Circle. These were 2018 counts. They were counts that were taken prior to both the installation of speed humps on Whitman and Goodwin Circle, as well as the completion of the 150 intersection improvements. Like I said, the sheets that are behind this verify this, but you can see, Goodwin Circle in 2018, there were 329 trips, and that would be westbound, 358 eastbound, for a total of 680 vehicle trips per day in 2018. And of those trips, 119 and 301, 420 total tractor trailers per week. The counters we have can distinguish the type of vehicle. So in 2018, Goodwin Circle and Whitman Circle averaged 687 trips a day and 420 tractor trailer trips per week. And then if you look down Goodwin Circle in 2020, these counts were taken, as I said, after speed bumps were installed and after the 150 roadway improvements. You can see that the numbers there are 162 eastbound, 173 westbound, for a total of 333 vehicles per day. So the improvements that were put in place basically yielded a cutting of the traffic by 50%. And I think even more important, the Goodwin Circle 2020 numbers showed 55 eastbound and 48 westbound for a total of 103 tractor trailer trips per week. So the weekly trips dropped from 420 to 103. If you look at the email, this was provided to me by Camilla Weckerly, who is our transportation engineer. If you see in there, in both scenarios, GPS devices are routing vehicles through the subdivision to save travel time. And for those of you aware, if you have a lot of these commercially available GPS systems, they are still, they read where people go, and they think, and then they assume because of the number of people going that way, that's the most efficient route. So as these trips decrease, we feel that, the GPS will start sending people up Oak Ridge Farm Highway to make a right at the intersection, and the GPS routing will drop, and we would hope to see some additional improvement in this. But I wanted to give you these. Like I say, the 4 pages behind are the actual counts people like Mr. Abraham may be able to discern this. I will tell you that I don't. That's why I was appreciative of the synopsis on the front, but I think just because you asked about it last month, we wanted to give this to you. And I think, I think what it shows is, 335 vehicles a day, that's a little under 1 a minute if you look at it in a 24-hour period. So there has been a significant reduction, and hopefully, once folks start using the interstates and the GPS will quit sending folks that way, and the numbers will get even better.
Quick question. And I'm kind of surprised tractor trailers, now to me, that's semi running through there. I'm kind of surprised they're going that way because that's not a road for a tractor trailer. Is there a way to put up a sign and say tractor, from enforcement, and say tractor trailers aren't allowed, at least cut down that traffic too?
Well, there are signs on the town street, but unfortunately, you've already made the turn. There's still, working with DOT to try to put something up there, that's actually on Oak Ridge Farm Highway that says now interestingly, one of the things that she did share with me is that they talked to some residents out there, and what they realized, tractor trailers get in there, and because they don't want to negotiate the speed bumps, they're actually making a 3-point road turn and going back out. So if you think about what you saw at Juncture, Whitman Circle, and Goodwin Circle, you can imagine the tractor trailer making a 3-point road turn on an 18-foot wide road. But I did ask her about the signage. They would need to get approval from DOT to put something up that announced, the tractor trailer limitation on Whitman Circle and Goodwin, because they are town streets, not DOT. But that is something that we are pursuing.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Culberson. That's a tremendous improvement, and thank you for the follow-up on Mr. Abraham's request. Any additional comments from the board or thoughts before we move to elections? And if not, we'll move to election of chairman and vice chairman for the planning board, and I'll take nominations.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, by acclamation, I say that we continue with you as chairman, Rosalind as vice chair.
Any other nominations? And do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Rosalind and I thank you very much for your continued approval and support, and that would place Steve McLaughlin as chairman and Rosalind Campbell as vice chair for the coming term. With that being done, are there any?
I'm sorry, I got
Mr. Culberson?
Sorry.
And I should have done this while I was up here the first time. We have been talking, and I think we're very fortunate now that we have Carrie with us on she'll be here all the time. We're not just, if we've got extra folks in the legal department, she will be here. One of the things that we have been talking with the planning staff as well as Carrie is to work to do some regular training with the planning board. I think in the August meeting, she's going to be talking a little bit about some of the legal aspects, things like that, as far as the judicial variance hearings and different things like that, just to kind of help with that. I know that we had a question previously from board members that would like some training as far as the TIA process, also about the land development or the plan review process and how that relates to what you see. But it is looking as far as programming future trainings. I wonder if, other than those that we mentioned, is there any other thoughts that board members have about some training that you'd like to see, so that we can program for that? We will. I'll also say that Monday night at the town board meeting, they did appoint a gentleman, Kurt Hodgman, to the planning board. He is an inside member to replace Mr. Nagle, who resigned, and he will be with us next month. So we will be doing some introductory training for him as well. But I wanted to find out if there's, because we're going to be looking at different things, ordinance things. Obviously, as the UDO comes forward, we'll be doing some discussion about that as well. But I wanted to find out if there's any any board members have any specific areas that you'd like us to, to concentrate on to bring you some additional training.
Any comments from the board for those items?
Can we get Mr. Bradford to give Mr. Martin some usage of the microphone so he talks into it? Just to, you kinda do away with the microphone, you.
I think what he's saying is you have to keep that microphone right in front of you when you're.
And he uses it as a plug too, man, so.
Still can't hear.
All right, so technical support's in order then. Well, I would like to thank you, Mr. Culberson, for the additional training items. I would suggest that certainly, as we've seen tonight, there's been some change in statements of reasonableness and compliance and how those impact the meeting and how they have to be read or to go with and follow through in the meeting or during the meeting. So I think that's always helpful, as well as the traffic impact and studies. And again, what we're to look at in those regards, I think are always beneficial as follow-up. So appreciate those items or any others that the board might suggest.
All right, and obviously, if you get the parking lot and think something, just give us an email, send it to us, and we'll be glad to put that in as far as what we're doing.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks always for your all's work, hard work in the background. With that, do we have if there's nothing else from the board, do we have a motion for adjournment? Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?